Shemai friendy, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Caitlin Anwin for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And today I'm going to be doing a food court shopping area with the exhibit animal from the Africa pack, the Sacred Scarab Beetle. Thought it'd be a little boring just doing the exhibit animal, and I kind of wanted to make sure guests would actually come into this area, and I can pretty much guarantee that they would come in for food and drink, especially because we haven't really got anything in this area for their needs. And I wasn't really sure what kind of building I wanted to make for this, so I grabbed a couple of my favorite Planet Zoo blueprints from this pack just to make sure that I tie everything in together and it doesn't look like super out of place with everything else. I also wanted to tie this building in with the entrance part of the whole zoo. Now we haven't really looked at that since the first build from this whole zoo, so if you haven't seen that, I will put that first video up in the iCards. I show you the entrance to that right at the start of that video. I wanted to make sure everything matched in with each other and it was a theme going on. I didn't want this building to be too out of place compared to everything else. But I really liked how the two towers were laid out, which is more like an entrance archway sort of thing. I really liked how the building was kind of laid out with that, so I wanted to take that and make it a little bit of my own. Instead of everything being squared off, I kind of wanted this whole building to have rounded areas with round windows and stuff. That was my plan for this. Probably shouldn't have done that though, because this made my life a lot harder and made everything a little bit more difficult to build on with these rounded parts of the tower. To get the pathways to line up with the buildings like I have done, the easiest way to do it is to build the building first, and then when you place the pathways, click align to grid and then select the building that you want it to align to. It's always easier to get the building lined up where you want it first and then put the pathways down, because it's not so easy to line the building up with the pathway. And I really love these curved glass pieces. They fit really nicely in with this tower. Unfortunately, they are an off-the-grid prop, so they were kind of difficult to line up and get everything exactly where I wanted it. I definitely regretted doing these rounded walls pretty much as soon as I placed them down. I just wanted it to be a little different. But the glass fits in really nicely with the floor tiling as well, so I really like that. And I stopped them being this plain white cream color too. I wanted to match the connecting part of the archway with the top, and the only way I could really think how to get the curved pieces to fit in right is doing a full circle and then splitting it up a little bit to make it fit properly with the tower. I've showed you how to do that circle trick a few times. Is one of my favorite things to do, but if you haven't seen any of my previous builds, that's okay. It's pretty self-explanatory looking at it. You basically need something, one object opposite another, and then duplicate those two parts over and over again and connect them slightly as you rotate them. Having them opposite each other and then rotating helps the rotation circle, the green, red and blue circles on the advanced move tab, to be directly in the center of the objects, so it will evenly rotate them so you can make a circle. Trying to get this quarter of a circle piece to line up with the rest of the tower of the building was even trickier, but I think I managed to get it to line up properly. Luckily I only have like one curved piece though, because this was just a pain in the ass. I wanted the shops to be on either side of the exhibits so that when guests are queuing up for the sort of facilities, they can stop and have a look at the exhibits while they're waiting, and it'll encourage guests to have a look at these a little bit more, because the exhibits aren't the most exciting things in the zoo. And I wanted to carry on the round theme as well by using circle windows for the exhibit. I thought that kind of made it look a little different as well, because those exhibits are so large and boxy. I didn't really feel like it fit in well with this zoo. Not really a fan of the exhibit thing itself, what holds the exhibit animals. I wish we had a few different shapes and sizes than just the big square box. It'd be nice to have like a thinner rectangular one, or I don't know, maybe even something circular. It'd be nice to have something different, not just the same big box for every exhibit animal, because not all the exhibit animals come in the same sizes, so it doesn't really make sense to have them in the same size exhibit. So it would probably be really cool if we had like an update where they gave us more exhibit boxes themselves. Just a suggestion really, that would be really interesting, and I would like to play around with that a little bit more, and it might make me want to play around with exhibits more than I usually do, because I just get kind of bored of the same box over and over again. And I really like these curved shades, like this glass piece that I put over the shop window. It matches in with the curved glass pieces that I used in the tower, and I've also used the same colours that I've used on the tower as well, just to keep everything consistent. And to match the toilets in with the rest of the building, I wanted to cover up the walls and the floor of the toilet to make it look like it was made from the same plaster as the rest of the building. The tiles, even though I have them the same sort of colour scheme, they don't really match in that well with the rest of the building, and it's still completely usable for the guests. We can just like decorate the bathroom a little bit nicer. It doesn't necessarily have to be what the game gives you. I decided not to really put a roof on much of this building. I wanted it to be more open air, so it would be a little bit more cool, especially for like the climate that this is in. It's like 30 plus degrees, so I didn't want to like enclose it completely. So I've added a couple more of those circular windows in as well to tie it in with the exhibit, and to sort of enclose those windows, I've used the wooden arbor stuff. I think that's what they're calling it, like the lattice. I thought that might be nice for the windows so they weren't so open and plain, and it ties it in with everything else. So I'm also using these blocks that look like stairs on the top of the shop buildings. This is the only part that I kind of enclosed, so you didn't see the top of the shop itself, and it's much easier to use these with straight angled buildings instead of curved buildings, so this was a little easier to build and place down. And I thought this space above the shops were a little bit too open, and I didn't want to use the like lattice arbor wood pieces, so I used the same beams that I used over the little tower entrance part of the building to link over the shops. So like the center part was sort of covered but still open and will still be like nice and cool for my guests. And I'm just adding in the Sacred Scarab Beetles now, otherwise known as dung beetles. And even though I am using the same exhibit animal in both sides of this building, I am decorating the exhibit itself in 2 different ways. So I'll use different enrichment item for each exhibit so they look slightly different. The only thing I've really kept the same is having the 3D wall at the back of the exhibit. I really like the 3D one. The 2D one didn't look as nice. I thought I would include some of the new Africa Pack benches. I think these are absolutely beautiful and they fit really nicely in with this building because they are round too. Or they're kind of octagonal, but they feel like round benches anyway, and the umbrellas too. The only problem with adding benches in though is the fact that you can't really move these with the advanced move tool. This building itself took me like 5 hours to build. I sometimes just miss how easy it is to build a house in The Sims compared to how difficult it is to build a building in Planet Zoo. There's just so much more you can add into things in Planet Zoo, like recoloring these lights so they are color matched to the rest of the building. And I wanted to add in a little bit extra with these beams. I'm using these little string lights, like fairy lights. You can probably tell that I like fairy lights, but I wanted to add in something a little extra to these beams over the building. And these fairy lights, string lights, whatever you want to call them, are base game. I did make sure that I wasn't using the Arctic Pack lights, and to make sure they are lined up nicely with the beams. I placed them over the top of the beams first so I would get them directly in the center, because it was really hard to look like up. It's easier to look down in this game. And then just lowered them all down so they lined up nicely with the bottom of the beams. I think this gives a really nice little effect, and it makes sure like the whole space in between the shops is lit up nicely too. Pretty much all the walls were feeling kind of too plain and beige, even though I added in the blue stained glass in between the walls. And I really love these tiles. I've used them for quite a few of the different buildings in this zoo, so I want to like tie it in a little bit to match in with like the safari station building. I wanted to add in the patterned tile pieces, and I also wanted to do like a pattern for these rectangular pieces as well, and I kind of regret doing that because this took me like the longest time to make sure the pattern was in the right order and none of the colors were the same next to each other. I'm really happy I included these. I just wish I wasn't so fussy with like the patterns matching and not having 2 tiles of the same color next to each other, because that is super time consuming. I really like this little food courtyard. I think it's really pretty. Nice and open and breezy, so it doesn't feel too hot and stuffy, because that'll really put my guests off their dinner, won't they? So just having a nice little look around. It's kind of a little bit more difficult to show off buildings than habitats. Usually I just let the animals run wild around it and that's how I show it off. But I'm not as confident using the camera angles in Planet Zoo as I was with The Sims. No, I haven't really touched that game in so long. My favourite part is the round circle windows for the exhibit. I think it makes the exhibits feel really different because usually they have like square windows or they're just fully just the big box. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this little building video. It's nice to mix it up a little bit sometimes and not always do habitats, but of course I would love to have some of your suggestions for any animals to build habitats for in this zoo. We still have one Africa Pack animal left, which is the fennekin, and I'm gonna leave it off there. If you've enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays and Saturdays around 7 p.m. my time, and I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!